The Journey of the Alphabet, Part 1, The Beginning. What comes to mind when you think about the alphabet? As an elementary teacher and mother of 2 young boys, I think about the alphabet song or many of our favorite ABC books. I also think about the teaching of the alphabet to young students. Students are at the beginning of their journey in learning to read. Reading doesn't come easily, as it requires much studying and practice. My study of the development of the alphabet has taught me that the ongoing journey to literacy is long and difficult. It has also taught me to view the alphabet differently. While researching the origins of the alphabet on the internet, I discovered a website for the Jars Museum of the Alphabet in Waxhaw, North Carolina. The large amount of information available in this museum is what started me on my own journey to discover the origins of our alphabet. Now I invite you to take a seat at your computer and join me in a virtual journey through space and time. Our journey begins in the ancient world, around 3000 BC. Before writing began, people lived in smaller communities that centered around agriculture. When bigger cities were established and they began to trade, there came a need for a writing system. It is believed that the earliest forms of writing started in Samaria, located in the Mesopotamia area. As people shipped grain, cattle, and sheep, it grew increasingly difficult to remember all of the transactions. The Sumerians began recording such transactions in pictures on clay tablets called pictographs. Reading and writing were not widespread in Mesopotamia. There were scribe schools that may have met in a temple or home courtyard. A select few attended such schools. Eventually, the pictures in the pictographs became more standardized, which gave way to cuneiform. A squared-off stick or stylus was used to press the wedge-shaped marks onto the clay. This is why it is called cuneiform, since it is a Latin word for wedge. The once rounded pictures of the pictographs became straight lines because of the wedge shape of the stylus. At first the pictures and then the cuneiform were drawn into columns. When they were put into rows, they were turned 90 degrees to read the same way. As time progressed, cuneiform was used to record literature and letters enclosed in clay envelopes. This letter is from a brother telling how his family was left behind in the winter with no clothes, food, or fuel. One of the most popular tablets found was the Flood tablet. It came from the library of King Ashurbanipal of Assyria, who reigned from 669 to 631 BC. The tablet tells a story that is very similar to the biblical account of Noah and the ark. Around the same time that cuneiform was being used, the Egyptians began to use what is known as hieroglyphs. Some pictures on the hieroglyphs stood for what was actually pictured. Other signs represented words or parts of words or phrases. The Egyptians thought education was important. There were special scribe schools that started training young boys around 8 or 9 years of age. There were schools for the wealthy or those who were going to be priests. The best education was reserved for the princess school. This school was reserved for royalty, nobles, and high officials. Ordinary people schooled their children at home. Girls would have been educated by their mothers in ways of making clothing, cooking, and cleaning. Women were able to farm and sell land. There would have been some instruction on agriculture and selling produce for girls if the family farmed. Many boys were taught the trade of their fathers. The Phoenicians were inspired by the Egyptian hieroglyphs to create their own alphabet. Since they were sea traders, they shared it with many people groups. If the Phoenicians are not credited for the creation of the alphabet, they would most certainly be an integral part of its beginnings. The alphabet reads from right to left and contains 22 consonant letters. It was understood that the language was spoken and that one would know what vowels to use and where to place them. However, they did not take into account that people would have a difficult time reading it many years later. The Greeks actually gave us the name alphabet. Alpha and Beta were the names of the first two letters in the Greek alphabet. They added the vowels and passed it on. In the beginning, the Greeks wrote in any direction. As their alphabet developed, they wrote from left to right, incorporated spaces between words, and added punctuation. In the book, The Disappearance of Childhood, Neil Postman credits this culture for beginning the first schools. The teaching of reading was called leisure, since the Greeks felt that thinking was automatically done in leisure. Postman also discusses the schools of 7-year-old boys from Sparta, where they learned to exercise, and they learned just enough. Greek students learned under 3 types of teachers: a teacher for music, a teacher for wrestling, boxing, and gymnastics, and a teacher for reading, writing, arithmetic, and literature. Not all students went to school. The poor students were not in school as long as the wealthier students. It was not uncommon for girls to attend school, but it was more common for boys.